All right. Hi, welcome to my deck tech experiment. This was inspired by MagicMikeXx. He made a comment on my channel asking me to do a me the Immortal deck tech. So this is Despicable Me. This is how I would build me the Immortal. Um, it took me about 2 days to do this, so it's not optimized. I don't know how well it would work in your environment, but let's get going. So Despicable Me. Be the Immortal, what does she do? So at the beginning of combat in your turn, you get a choice of a 1/1 counter, a first strike, vigilance, or menace counter. The counters stay as she moves to any other zone. Doesn't matter. And if she dies, you can recast her by paying the 5 mana cost and discard 2 cards. So to me, what I would want to do with her is attack. Attack a lot. Buffer up. Voltron. So I've chosen a lot of cards that should enhance his Voltron strategy, protect my board, protect myself, and create problems for my opponents so I can execute my strategy while they're trying to untangle themselves from the traps I've laid. So first off, Jason Mind Sculptor. Main reason he's in here is for his his brainstorm ability. Draw 3 cards, then choose 2 cards, put them back on top of your library in any order, and return target creature to its owner's hand. His Fate Seal ability, not too worried about it. His ultimate, not too worried about it. I have no intention of triggering it. Mainly, I want those 2 middle abilities. Nissa, Vital Wars. At first, when I first looked at Me the Immortal, I thought she was black, blue, and red. And then when I opened up Moxfield, saw she's green, I thought, okay, this throws away my strategy using black completely. Let's see what green can give her. So green gives her a lot. Nissa, okay, 5 for a 5 loyalty planeswalker. Untap target land you control until your next turn. It becomes a 5/5 for +1. I don't care about that. What I really care about is the -3. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Uh, this deck is going to be able to discard cards, wipe the board, and I want ways of recovering my cards. I want ways of bringing things back. The next 6, you get an emblem with whenever land enters the battlefield under control, you may draw a card. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So we need to tick her up to 7, pop off that ultimate, and then just keep ticking her up, untap a land, use it for mana, and then as we find it necessary to return a permanent from the graveyard to the hand. Oko, he just solves problems. If you're playing blue and green, he's not needed in every deck, but he finds a place in any deck where he finds himself. So +2, create a food token. All right, if we're getting low in life, we can eat some food. Or +1, target artifact or creature loses all abilities, becomes a green 3/3 elk. He solves problems. So if your opponents have a creature or an artifact that's interfering, we can deal with it. The -5, exchange control target artifact or creature you control, target creature and opponent controls, power 3 or less. That could be useful too. If they've got some artifact and you want it, you can trade a food or treasure token for that artifact. So Oko has a lot of uses in this deck. There's a reason why he was banned after he went out of print, and Wizards can no longer make any money off of him. Tezzeret the Seeker. I overused Tezzeret. I put him in far too many blue decks. I think I've got him in 3 EDH decks right now, which out of 15, that's pretty high, especially since half of those decks don't even have blue and can't play him. So he's overrepresented because he's so good. +1, tap up to 2 target artifacts. So the Mana Vault, Soul Ring, that sort of thing. Brass Squire, you can get other activation out of it. Um, Walking Atlas, you can get another activation out of it. But what he's really good at is search your library for an artifact card with current amount and cost X and put it into play. X being how many loyalty you remove. He's going to find the Teferi's Puzzle Box, which is going to be a key card in this deck, as you'll see. His Neg 5 artifact control become 5/5 artifact creatures till end of turn. Don't care about that. Never used it. I use it for untapping artifacts and searching. Tezzeret Artifice Master. +1, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token, which you can trade for something a little bit bigger or for another artifact. And then draw a card. If you control 3 or more artifacts, draw 2 cards instead. That's pretty sweet. Neg 9. That's pretty heavy. But you get an emblem with at the beginning of your end step, search a library for a permanent card, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. So if you get it up to Neg 9 and you activate his ultimate, every turn you can just go find whatever permanent you need and put it into play. And the Royal Scions. +1, draw a card, then discard a card. It's pretty good. Target creature gets +2/+0, first strike, and trample till end of turn. First strike and trample. And you can give her Vigilance, Menace, or +1/+1. So that directly enhances the strategy of using me as an inveterate attacker. Attack every turn you can. Negate, draw 4 cards. When you do, the Royal Scions deals damage to any target equal to the number of cards in your hand. We should have a big hand as we go. Creatures. All right. Archaeomancer. Enters the battlefield, return target instant graveyard. Insert sorcery from graveyard to your hand. So this is going to get back our sorceries and instants as we cast them or discard them. Brass Squire. I put 4 swords in this build, and Brass Squire lets you equip a sword for free outside of the colors that normally do this. So 3 for 1/3 artifact creature. So it's got some decent stats for its casting cost. Tap. Target equipment you control to target creature you control. And if you untap it with Tezzeret, of course, you can activate it again. So you get 2 free activations. Burnished Heart. So green, of course, can ramp. But something else I wanted this deck is I wanted artifacts that can ramp too, and also artifacts that I can use to trade to the Goblin Welder, which I'll get to in a moment. So 3 for 2/2, sacrifice it, search a library for up to 2 basic land cards, toss them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Typical use is somebody attacks, you block the elk, activate it, go find your lands, the creature's blocked, and you get you take no damage and you get a couple lands out of the interaction, out of the transaction. Charmbreaker Devils, he's kind of in here just for fun. So 6 for 4/4 Devil, beginning of your upkeep, return an instant resource card at random from your graveyard to your hand. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, it gets +4/+0 to end of the turn. So with some of the light recursion we have here, we can just keep throwing him out to attack. You don't have to worry about Exalted in this deck the way I've built it, so you don't have to worry about attacking alone. Most of the creatures aren't there to attack. This is not a wide deck. It's a narrow Voltron deck where Despicable Me should be the one doing most of the heavy lifting, most of the attacking. But if you can make something bigger and throw it out there, go ahead. That said, Coalite Selkie is definitely something you want to attack with. So 1, 2 blue-green hybrid for 1/1 Island Walker. Unless you give her +2/+0 and trample from the Royal Scions. Then she's 3/1. Still with Island Walk. Whenever she deals combat damage to a player, you may draw that many cards. So the bigger you can make her, the more cards you can draw. And one strategy is just to, whoever has islands, you just keep poking them for one. Don't worry about making her bigger. Just poke them for one to get a card at random. So that way they don't pay as much attention to her. They will be annoyed after a while, but not if she's something like a 3-1 or a 3-3 with a sword. Then they're going to come after her. Consecrated Sphinx, 6/4/4/6 flyer. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2 cards. And your opponents will be drawing cards because you're going to go find the puzzle box and put it in play. Deep Glow Skate, yes, there's not a whole lot of proliferation in this deck. So this deck has a lot of light themes, a lot of a touch of this, a touch of that. Deep Glow Skate feeds into that. What it does do is when it comes into enters the battlefield, you double the counters on all of your planeswalkers, whoever's in play. And double the +1/+1 encounters, and you'll double the menace and first strike counter if you have one too, but who cares? Phyrexian Metamorph. So, artifact or creature clone. There isn't really anything in here that I would say is a good native target. Maybe Deep Glow Skate, maybe Dockside Extortionist. He's just here because I've always found him useful. And if you're playing the colors and you've got room for a Phyrexian Metamorph, you might as well throw it in. Here's where we start getting into our secondary strategy. Niv Mizzet the Firemind. So, 2 blue, 2 red for 4/4 flying Dragon Wizard. Whenever you draw a card, Niv Mizzet does 1 damage target creature or player. You can tap and draw a card. Teferi's Puzzle Box says, at the beginning of everybody's draw step, they count the number of cards in their hand, put those in the bottom, and then they draw that number of cards. It specifies draw. So if you have 7 cards in your hand, and you go to Puzzle Box, you go to your beginning of your turn, put 7 on the bottom, you draw 7, that's 7 damage he's doing. That gets pretty beefy. Mystic Snake. So, counterspell on a 2/2 stick. 1 green, blue, blue for a 2/2 snake. Play him as innocent. He's flashy. Comes into play, counter target spell. And you've got ways of bouncing it back. Jace's Archivist. So, 1 blue, blue for a 2/2 Vidalcan Wizard. 1 blue, tap. Each player throws away their hand and then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. So you've got Niv Mizzet out. You've got him out. Anybody who's seen a Niv Mizzet build knows where I'm going with this. They've seen it. Throw away 7 cards. Let's say you've got that in your hand. You deal 7 damage to Niv Mizzet, and it's all individual. That's 7 1 points of damage, not 7 to just one thing. And then during your draw step, Teferi's Puzzle Box will count that new 7, put them on the bottom, you draw 7. So the damage starts to add up quickly. Goblin Welder. There's a lot of artifacts in here, and there's a lot of artifacts your opponents are going to want to destroy, especially the swords. So the Welder allows you to switch a doctor token, a food token, or a treasure token for something a bit more spicy. 1 red for a 1/1 goblin. Tap. Exchange target artifact a player controls for target artifact in that player's graveyard. You can also use it to screw over your opponents if they've got some artifact that's vexing you, and they've got something irrelevant in their deck, say an Armillary Sphere or a Solemn Simulacrum. You can give them the sphere or simulacrum back and get rid of whatever it is that's bothering you. Since we've got green, and me wants to attack, and she gets counters, we've got the Deep Blue Skate to double the counters. Let's put more counters on her. So Forgotten Ancient, 3 and a blue for 0/3 elemental. Whenever anyone plays a spell, you may put a +1/+1 counter. Forget. So don't forget this. If you forget the trigger and your opponents are playing tight, they will not allow you to go back and remember. So whenever anybody plays a spell, just as with Ristic Study, which is not a May, don't forget to put the +1/+1 counter on your Forgotten Ancient, because during your upkeep, you can move any number of them to any number of other creatures. And that's going to be important later, because there's going to be some creatures you're going to need to put counters on to keep them alive during different phases of the game. Yeah, Dockside Distortionist. 70 euros. Expensive, but he is what he is, and he does what he does, and he's good. 1 in a red for a 1/2 Goblin Pirate. Enters the battlefield, create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents have. Since he comes down early, if you draw him early, and he doesn't cost much, you're going to want to cast him relatively soon to get that initial advantage to boost you. And later on, you're going to want some way of recurring him. So let's keep going with what we've got. Psychosis Crawler. If you're drawing cards, this guy's pretty good. So his power toughness equal number of cards in your hand. So if you trigger Jace's Archivist, you throw away your hand. At that stage, he will become a 0/0 and die. This is why you want to put +1/+1 counters on him from the Ancient, or equip him with a sword, do something with him so he never goes to 0 toughness and dies. Because whenever you draw that card, each opponent loses 1 life. And it's only 5. Keep in mind, though, that this is loss of life. There are some corner cases where the difference between damage and loss of life is very relevant. And you'll need to kind of monitor that to see if it's relevant or not. Because if your opponent has something that prevents damage, well, they probably don't have anything that prevents loss of life. Reclamation Sage, because sometimes you just need to blow something up. 2 and a green for 2/1 Elf Shaman. Enters the battlefield, you may destroy a target artifact or enchantment. You don't have to, but why wouldn't you? Solemn Simulacrum. I think everybody knows about this guy, but for those of you that somehow missed him, he's pretty damn good for these colors. Maybe not green so much, but definitely blue and black. So 4 for 2/2 Golem comes into play. Go find a basic land, toss it on the battlefield tapped, and when he dies, you can draw a card. So you get to the Golem, you go find your land, and then you can trade him for something else in your graveyard that your opponent has destroyed, or maybe something that you forgot to increase the toughness on and you want it back. Stunt double. Actually, right now, let's take that out, because I was thinking about this last night, and we'll put a Spark Double in. Spark Double, it doesn't give you the flash that Stunt Double does, but it can copy one of your legendary creatures, or it can copy one of your planeswalkers, and in itself it's not legendary. And if you copy a creature, it comes into play at the +1/+1 counter, so you can have 2 Psychosis Crawlers, and one will have the native 1/1 counter. Or you can copy Niv Mizzet and do double the damage. Or you can copy one of your planeswalkers and double your fun that way. All for the low price of 3 and a blue. Venser Shaper Symbol. 2 and 2 blue for a 2/2 Human Wizard. He's flashy. Comes into play, you can bounce a spell or bounce a permanent to its owner's hand. So you can save something of yours, or you can put back something your opponents are doing. For example, I forget the name of it, but there's a spell played in Eldrazi. It costs 12. And you do something like draw 4 cards, destroy some permanents, take another. It's really nasty. If you could put that back in there, and it's uncounterable, I believe. I believe it's uncounterable. I could be wrong. And I don't remember the name offhand, so I can't really look it up on the fly. Well, Venser can put it back in their hand, so you don't have to deal with it. And then you can Venser it back in your hand, so if they do it again, you can put it back in their hand, so you don't have to deal with it. Until somebody breaks that stalemate. Or you kill the Eldrazi player and you win the game. Walking Atlas. I like this guy. I like this guy a lot. 2 for a 1/1 construct. Tap, you may put a land card from your hand. It is a basic. Any land. So you can tap and put a land into play. You can use Teferi, or sorry, not Teferi. You can use Tesseract the Seeker to untap him. Untap your Soul Ring. His +1 is untap to up to 2 target artifacts. So you can tap him again and toss another land. So this helps us get our lands into play quicker. Whirlpool Warrior. 2 in a blue for a 2/2 merfolk. When she comes into play, you shuffle a number of cards. You shuffle your hand into your library, then draw the many cards. Red. Everybody does that. Red, and you sacrifice her. Everybody shuffles the cards from their hand into the library and then draws that many cards. So you can keep bouncing her to shuffle yours if you've got Niv Mizzet out and you keep wanting to do that. Or if you think your opponents have something like the aforementioned Eldrazi spell, you can use Venser, put that Eldrazi spell back in their hand, sacrifice her, so they shuffle it back in the library, and hopefully they won't draw it for a little while, and you don't have to deal with it. Because it's really... The 2 times my friend has cast it has made such an impression on me. Because both times he won the game within 2 turns after. Let's look at the sorceries. Cultivate. 200 green. Go find 2 basic land cards. Show them to everybody. Put 1 in your hand, 1 in the battlefield tapped. Kodama's Reach. It's Cultivate with a different name. Nature's Lore. And 3 visits. These do basically the same thing. Search library for a force card. Put that on the battlefield. And then shuffle your library. This is the same thing. These are here really to go find your shocklands. So to color fix you. The fact that they ramp is nice. But what you want to do with them is if you need your breeding pool or your stomping ground, you can go find it. Time Spiral. Okay, I tried to keep the deck at a lower price point. Try to make it as I would honestly be able to build it with either the cards I have and the financial resources that I would generate in a 2 or 3 month period to put this deck together. So the deck you're looking at is how I would build it, honestly, if I wanted to build it. This is the most expensive card in the deck. It's fallen in price quite a bit on Magic Card Market now. They had heavily played ones for about €55, I think. So I feel like this is a fair inclusion. If you're wanting to build this and you don't want to spend the money on a Time Spiral, you can use Time Reversal. It's the same thing, except you don't get to untap the lands. But it's a hell of a lot cheaper to buy. Time Warp. Kind of up in the air about this. Not sure if I'd want to keep it or not. But if you've killed somebody with me and your other opponent is looking in shock and horror as he sits there at, say, 15, 20 life, and me's pretty big, well, you can Time Warp, take another turn, take him out too, end the game, go to the next one. Take him out of his misery. Seize the Day could do the same thing too, Except if Me has a sword that gives her protection from red, you cannot target her with Seize the Day. So, Time Warp it is. Wash out. So, one of the things that you want to do is give your opponents fuller hands for the Teferi's puzzle box. And wash out helps do that, plus it gets rid of some problems. If you wash out white or black, it doesn't hurt you at all. You really don't care. If you need to wash out blue, well, then whatever you have, come back into play, and you can recycle the effects. So that's the kind of the mass kill. I don't have Blasphemous Act in this deck. I decided for bounce instead. Instance, Etherize. So if you're being attacked with a lot of creatures, you can get rid of them. You fill your opponent's hand. You can also do it to yourself. So let's say you attack with Me and a couple of the creatures because you think you've got that opportunity. You think you can get them through, and your opponent decides to hit you with Settle the Wreckage. Rather than having those creatures be exiled, you can just bounce them back to your hand. It's a corner case, but it is available. Beacon of Destruction needs some way of dealing pinpoint damage. I like this because even though it costs 5, it does 5 damage. You can take out most things. And then you shuffle it back in your library, and since you're going to be casting the puzzle box or putting it to play with Tezzeret as quickly as possible, the odds are you'll see it again pretty soon. Cyclonic Rift, because why not? One of the most hated cards in EDH, but hated for good reasons. Hated for the effectiveness. Return target online permanent you don't control to someone's hand, but nobody does that. Everybody overloads it. Everybody. I've never seen anybody use it on a single target. Why waste it? Disallow. So, a lot of options. Counterspell, activated ability, triggered ability. If you've got a lot of things in your graveyard because you've been using Jace's Archivist a lot to get that Niv Mizzet damage, and somebody decides your graveyard is ripe for a Bajuka Bog, you can disallow it. Now, of course, if Teferi's Puzzlebox in play, you have no guarantee you'll have the card when you need it, but maybe you will. Evacuation. Return all creatures to owner's hand. Somebody has a token army. Your buddy over there playing Lord Windgrace. He's managed to get 20 2/2 zombies, and he's looking at you with an evil eye. Well, bounce all those zombie tokens back to his hand at instant speed on his attack step. See what he does then. Forbid. Of course, with Puzzle Box, this will keep going back in your library. But you do have the option of buying it back. Like I said, this deck was hurriedly constructed. This is the way I would build it. I would do this. And then I would play test it in live and take out what doesn't work. Right now, there are a few cards I'm not sure are going to work, Forbid being one of them. But I'm willing to give it the chance. I'm willing to experiment. Heroic Intervention. Permanent control, gain hexproof and indestructible in turn. Somebody's going to wipe your board. You can stop that. Grossing Grip. Sometimes you really need to get rid of an artifact or enchantment, and you don't want anybody interfering. So grip it. Split second. Can't be countered. Void Slime. Counter target spell is basically dismiss. It's just dismiss with 1 green instead of 1 colorless. So you've got 2 chances to get this effect when you need it. And then, of course, as an Archaeomancer, you can bounce it back to your hand if there's no better target, like Time Warp. Artifacts. Okay, here's where we get the meat of it. So we need some color fixing. Arcane Signet, because it comes down early, gives us any one of our colors, blue, green, or red. Chromatic Lantern. This deck has a lot of lands that don't produce mana, produce colorless mana rather. So Chromatic Lantern lets us use them for either mana we need, or for the effect that they're in there for. Crystal Shard. So if your opponents aren't playing blue, they can't really stop this if they don't have 3 mana available. And a lot of times, especially earlier in the game, they won't have 3 mana available. And occasionally they'll forget this is out there, and they'll have a creature that they want to do something with, and they don't want to bounce back. They'll go to attack, go to do something, and you say, hey, why'd you put that back in your hand? Oh, sorry, no. I completely misrepresented this. It's you, either 3 tap or 1 blue tap. Return creature to someone's hand unless they pay 1. So forget what I said, belay my last. It's in here mainly to get second activations out of your creatures anyway. Deep Blue Skate, you cast it, you spend 1 blue, put it back in your hand so you can cast it again. Same with the Aquarium Master, Venser, Dockside Excursion, whoever. Mana Vault. This is a lot more expensive than it used to be, a lot more. I have a copy, so that's why I felt I could put it in this build. If you try to build this and you don't want to spend the money on a Mana Vault, you could use Basalt Monolith instead. There are other things you can use. You can just jam in another Signet, a Talisman. Memory Jar. So, 5. Sack it. Everybody sets aside their hand face down, and then draws that many cards. So you've got Niv Mizzet out. You've got Memory Jar out. Sack Memory Jar. You draw 7 cards, that's 7 points of damage. You Goblin Welded for something. You do it again, that's 7 more damage. It can get really ugly really fast, and that's why Goblin Welder is there. That's why Academy Ruins in the land section is there, to get the jar back. Because it's something you're going to want to do whenever you have Niv Mizzet. Excuse me. Ring of Evo Siles, 2. For artifact equipment. Equipped creature gains hexproof for 2 until end turn. So you put this on me. If somebody's going to target her, you can give her hexproof for 2 colorless. At the beginning of your upkeep, if it's equipped to a blue creature, which she is, put a +1/+1 counter, so you can give her a +1/+1 from the ring, and then a +1/+1 from her net ability, and she can get really big, really fast, and you can smash face. Same with Ring of Calonia, except it gives a +1/+1 if the equipped creature is green, and it gives a creature trample. So this is pretty good with Mi's ability, with the idea of making her a Voltron primary attacker, with everything else being supportive of that strategy. Let's go here to Scroll Rack. So if you do have a handful of cards and you don't have anything you need, for example, let's say somebody's going to hit your graveyard with Bujika Bog, and you don't want it to go away, and you don't have a Disallow or Void Slime. And as a speed, you can Scroll Rack and see if you can get one of those cards. A lot of times you can't, because there are only 2 out of 100, barring whatever you draw to reduce the deck, barring whatever you played that further reduces the current size of your library. But this doubles your chances of getting something you need when you need it. 2, 1 tap, choose any number of cards in your hand, put them aside, draw that number of cards. No, I need to be careful with this. Put an equal number of cards from the top of your library into your hand. This does not say draw, so this will not trigger Niv Mizzet. Keep that in mind. And then the cards that you set aside, you put back on top of your library in any order. So you can fix your future draws by stacking the top of your library. This has a diminishing return. If you dig for 7, and next turn you try to dig again, you're probably not going to be digging for 7 because you've cast things, you've played some lands. Even if you dig for 7 after you draw, you're only looking at one more card. So this is a card that you use every few turns. It's not an every turn activation card, but it's pretty damn good. Soul Ring, 1, tap, add 2 colorless mana. Yeah, play first turn. Everybody says, "Good play, man," and tries to make you feel bad while you smugly smile. Let me take a sip of coffee so I can talk. Right, that's better. Okay, since we've got the Goblin Welder, we need more targets for him. We need more things we can do. So, Spinovish Saw. For 7, it comes into play, you destroy target permanent. Artifact, creature, land, doesn't matter, Planeswalker, it just kills it. And when it goes to the graveyard, you can it goes back to your hand. So you play it, you weld it up, trade it for something else in your graveyard, and it goes back in your hand so you can cast it again. Of course, by design, it's not meant to be in your graveyard, so you can't just use the welder to cheat it back into play and use the ability. You have to cast it again. But I think it's still a valuable inclusion in that it can deal with any sort of problem that you might be having, barring instants or sorceries. So now we're going to get into the meat of the deck, what really is going to make me despicable. And I was wrong. There are 5 swords, not 4. First up, Sword of Feast and Famine. Me will get protection from black and green, +2/+2, and whenever she smashes into somebody, you get to untap all your lands, and they discard a card. Sword of Light and Shadow. Me will get protection from black and white, +2/+2. Whenever you smash into somebody, you gain 3 life, and you raise dead. Sword of Sin and Steel. Me will get an additional +2/+2. Protection from black and red, and when you smash into somebody, you can destroy up to 1 target planeswalker and up to 1 target artifact. And it doesn't have to be the defending player. Keep that in mind. If you equip me with the Sword of Sinnoh and Steel, and you've got somebody playing black, red, something that colors that prevent her from being blocked, you can smash into that player, and then you can look at the other guy with the planeswalker that you don't want, say Nicol Bolas, and you can destroy that planeswalker over there. And you can destroy somebody else's artifact that's not even really paying attention because they're scrolling on their phone when they should be watching the game. So that's really nice that it's not the defending player, that they thought that far ahead. Sword of Truth and Justice. This is it's kind of the crappiest sword in here. So she'll get protection from blue and white. Yeah, relevant colors, but still. When she deals combat damage to a player, then you'll put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, then proliferate. If you've got planeswalkers, put more counters on them. If you've got me, put more counters on her. If you've got your Psychosis Crawler, you can give it that the +1/+1 counter from the sword, proliferate it so it gets 2, so that way when you go to discard your hand and draw cards, he doesn't die. Sword of War and Peace. Since this deck, with Me's ability from the graveyard being pay her casting cost, throw away 2 cards, and put her back into play, that's why there's a lot of draw abilities. That's another reason that I went the Niv Mizzet route, because I did see we would want to be drawing a lot of cards in this deck. Sword of War and Peace reward us for having that many cards, and will punish our opponents for having cards in their hand. So whenever she smashes into somebody, and she'll have protection red and white, the player that was smashed takes damage equal number of cards in their hand, and you'll gain 1 life for each card in your hand. So it's part of the light life gain suite that we don't really have. Not a lot of ways of gaining life in this deck. It's more aggressive, more tricky and controlling. And here we go. This is the star of the show. This is the artifact that you want to get out into play as quickly as possible. Keep it in play, recur it as often as you need to. Teferi's Puzzle Box. And this is my favorite art for this card. Kai Faglio. I really like this picture. During each player's draw phase, they count the cards in their hand, put those in the bottom library, and then draw that number of cards. Draw. So when you do it, as I said before, it'll trigger an visit. Beautiful card. So let's go to the enchantment section. Exploration. You can play an additional land each turn. If you build this and you play it, Magic Mike, you might find that burgeoning could be better than exploration. Because since your opponents with Puzzle Box should be throwing away their hands every turn, putting them on the bottom of the library, they will have an incentive to play everything they can, and burgeoning every time your opponent plays a land, you may put a land into play. So since you should be seeing new cards all the time also, it might be more efficient to have burgeoning in here, so that way when your opponents play lands on their turn, you can keep up. I went with exploration because in the early game, it's better. In the early game, you cast exploration, and then immediately you can play a second land. And it's a toss-up. Heuristic Study. Oh, okay. I was wrong. Heuristic Study is a May. Someday I should read the cards. So Heuristic Study. 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, you may draw a card unless a pair plays 1. So it taxes them, or you get to draw cards. And if it taxes them, it actually helps you. Since we don't have a lot of creatures, we're not going to have a whiteboard, won't have that many blockers. And so anybody with a whiteboard, with a heavy token strategy, that can come screaming at us with 10 2/2 tokens, 6 3/3 tokens, whatever. And we can't really hold up against that well. War Tax is in here to prevent them from attacking us in the first place. So War Tax, 2 and a blue. For an enchantment, when it's on the battlefield, you can spend X in a blue. X can be whatever you had put into it. Creatures can't attack this turn unless the controller pays X for each creature. Now, it'd be nicer if it said can't attack you, but they can't attack anybody. So it's also a political card. If another player is running low on life and he looks like he's about to die, but you kind of need him as a buffer. You need him to take the attention off of you so people don't focus on you and disrupting your strategy. You can save him by saying, well, creatures can't attack unless you pay X, and they can't attack anybody. Or you can use, hey, if I activate War Tax, what are you going to do for me? Are you going to show me some love, baby? So, a lot of uses out of that. I have it in my Azami Lady of Scrolls deck because the wizards are more. I don't want to be blocking and getting my wizards killed. So this is to stave off the inevitable attacks. The land section. Academy Ruins. Okay, this is part of the suite of lands that produce colorless, don't produce colored mana, so Chromatic Lantern is a good addition to this deck. One of the things that inspired me about this deck was my build of Kaervek the Merciless. Kaervek the Merciless is a disjointed stack of cards with no greater synergy. They're small little bits of synergy. A few cards here that work together, a few cards there that work together. But overall, there's no real theme. Despicable Me is kind of the same thing. There's no real overall theme. I mean, you've got the card draw, you've got the Niv Mizzet, you've got the discard. The theme is put her into play, buff her up, and attack. That is the theme. So, it's like my Kervik. My Kervik is put him into play, keep him in play, enjoy what he does when my opponents cast spells. Right. So, Academy Ruins, 1 in a blue, put an artifact card in your graveyard and type your library. So you can recur the artifacts as they get destroyed or not. Breeding Pool, Forest Island. So Nature's Lore and 3 physics can go find it if you need the blue, and you're able to cast one of those 2 cards. Command Tower. Yeah, if I built it, I would buy this one. I like it. I like the Princess Bride Command Tower too, but it's a bit harder to see. It's a bit the art is busier. There's more going on. This is simpler, elegant. I don't have this version, but I intend to get one. Forest, 7 Forest. I chose East Forest. This, this kind of fits. It's like the tree is bending into a time portal or something. So kind of goes with her being a Doctor Who card. Hall of the Mandalord comes into play tapped. You can tap it, pay 3 life, add 1 to your mana pool. If that mana is spent on a creature spell, she'll have haste. So this could be another argument for burgeoning instead of exploration, because you have burgeoning. Your opponent plays a land in their turn. If you have Hall of the Mandalord in play, you can play it. It will come into play tapped. On your turn, it will untap, and so you can use it immediately. Something to consider. These are the islands I chose for this version of the deck. Carplucent Forest, blue-green, Jesus. Green-red fetch land. No. I need to read the cards. Charlie, I've done this early in the morning. Red-green pain land. So you can add colorless, or you can tap for red or green, take a point of damage. I've got the cycle of 3 in here because I'm kind of worried about me hitting your colors as quickly as you need to. Rogue's Passage, tap, add 1 colorless, 4, tap, target creature can't be blocked this turn. So me just smashes through with her sword she's holding. Lord Tower. Well, if you're going to be drawing a lot of cards, kind of want to keep them. And having Puzzle Box see that you've got a dozen cards in your hand, and Niv Mizzet seeing that Puzzle Box sees that you have a dozen cards in your hand, is pretty good. Reflecting Pool. Add 1 mana of any type that the land you control can produce. I was thinking about putting City of Brass in here, just to make it more accessible for the colors. If I did that, I would take out either an island or a mountain for City of Brass, not a forest. Or maybe would I? Excuse me. I'd have to think about that. I'd have to think about what I would take out for City of Brass should I choose to include it. Mountain. Look at those misty mountains. We should hop on those misty mountains. Misty Rainforest. Fetch land for forest or island. Find your shocklands. Find your basics if you're out of shocklands. Minimal. A School of Letter's Edge. So tap, add blue. Blue tap, and tap target legendary permanent. So if you need to, you can other activation out of Academy Ruins. You can untap me, use her for a blocker. Untap Niv Mizzet, draw another card. Not a whole lot of uses for this card in this build, because there's not a lot of legendary permanents that you might want to tap. For example, you have my Hollow. Typically, you're only worried about regenerating one creature when you activate it. Minamo, if you have the mana, gives you the option of activating it again, but it's an easy inclusion because it comes into play untapped, still gives you blue, not colorless, which nowadays, that's what they would do. Nowadays, it would give you colorless if they redid the card. Ketria Triome. I minimize the number of lands that come into play tapped. So Hall of the Bandlord comes into play tapped. Ketria Triome comes into play tapped. Everything else comes into play untapped, so you don't lose that velocity. So of course this is fetchable. You can find it with 3 visits. You can find it with Nature's Lore because it is a forest. And it taps for any of the colors that you may need. Scalding Tard, your blue-red fetch land. Siobhan Reef, your blue-red pain land. I like this. I like the art on this. I really want to get one of these just for the art. I have no need for it. I have 2 Scalding Tarns, a Siobhan Reef. I have 2 Siobhan Reef already in my art binder, so I don't need it, but it's so beautiful. I'd like to see it in foil. Steam Vents, your island mountain blue-red Painland. Painland. Jesus Christ. I am just so unfocused today. But I've gone too far to stop now. Stop the ground. This is your green-red Shockland. Hey, I got it right. It's a mountain forest. Terrain generator. Well, you're going to be drawing a lot of cards. You're going to be putting them on the bottom of your library if you don't cast them with the puzzle box. So terrain generator allows you to put basic lands into play. So 2 tap, put a basic land from your hand to play. You can also tap for 1 colorless mana if you need to. I find this really useful in especially blue and black decks because they don't have a lot of ramp. They typically tend to need more artifacts, more signets, more talismans to ramp up. But this, especially if you're drawing a lot of cards and you're going to be getting basics in your hand, this lets you get them down quicker. Wooded Foothills. This is your green-red fetch land. You have My Coast. I like this too, really. Wow. I'm pretty sure I have a My Coast foil in my binder of cards I'm not doing anything with, so I don't need this. I don't need it at all, but it's just so pretty. It hurts you, but it's pretty. And then finally you have My Hollow. Tap, add 1 colorless mana, your mana pool. Green, tap, regenerate target creature. I don't know why this price is here. Because maybe that is the US price. In Europe, it's fallen a lot. Or maybe that is accurate. Maybe with the exchange rate, it really is 65 US dollars. Yeah, 50 euros. Yeah, that'd be 65 US dollars. So this is the second most expensive card in the deck if you're to build it. The Time Spiral is the most expensive card in the deck if you're going to build it. Of course, it can be replaced with the Time Reversal. There's really nothing that can replace the Mahalo. There are no other effects that do what it does as cleanly as it does. So it's worth including for the money. Plus, there's Reserve List card. So there's that. And let me go to the honorable mention. Where the hell is it? Oh, no. I'm thinking of something else. I apologize. I apologize for dragging you down to the bottom of the deck for no reason at all. So let's go back to the top. So that was how I would build Despicable Me. The idea of the deck is that you buffer up as much as possible, as quickly as possible, smash face as often as possible. And everything else in the deck is designed to enhance that primary strategy of making her a super ninja, or helping you recover so you can continue to execute that strategy. All right, that's it. Magic Mike, I hope you liked it. Anybody else, if you like this sort of thing, I'll do it more often. Because one of the things that restricted me before is I was only showing cards I actually had in paper. If this gets a lot of views, if this gets a lot of traction, I'll do more deck techs just on Moxfield. And people can give me suggestions. People can say what they want me to come up with next. Right. Cheers for it.